Welcome back, everybody. I'm Michael Foley, and in this video, we're going to talk about elbows. Elbows pop up in a bunch of different martial arts, but are predominant in Muay Thai, Letway, and all the branch styles in Southeast Asia. I grew up throwing elbows in karate, but never in competition. It was always for smashing boards in karate demonstrations. In today's competition world, you're mostly going to see elbows pop up in Muay Thai and MMA. Outside of combat sports, the elbow is one of the most effective weapons for self-defense. An untrained or just lightly trained practitioner could throw a punch in a self-defense situation, but you're very likely to hurt your hand, whereas if you throw an elbow strike, you're unlikely to break your elbow. And just something you should know before we get into the actual techniques itself, the part of your elbow that you're going to hit with, it's your ulna underneath right here, and you're going to hit with the very last few inches of it right here. If I make a fist when I throw these elbows, you flex the muscle in your forearm right here, and that flexed muscle can act as like a bit of a bumper, so softening the blow. So you want to practice these with an open hand, no flexion right here in the forearm muscle, and you want to hit with just the bone right on the end. So today's video, I'm going to take you through the 5 basic types of elbows. You'll see more variations of elbows as well, but these are the 5 that you see most often. First off, you want to get your basic stance, whether it's more of a side-on stance or a narrower front-on stance. It doesn't really matter, but for today, I'm just going to use this narrow, more front-on stance, so I've got equal or closer to equal balance on each leg. So from right here in my guard, the first type of elbow we're going to talk about is the horizontal elbow. It's a lot like throwing a hook punch from here, but instead of connecting with my fist, my hand's going to be closer to my body, and I'm going to use the blade of my elbow right here. So from here, if I'm going to throw the right side, I'm going to push off my back foot, rotate my hip and shoulder, and I want to keep my head in line with my spine and everything centered between my 2 feet. I push off my back foot, rotate my shoulder. I bring my elbow up here to the front, not too far behind, not too far to the front right here, but just slightly ahead of my shoulder. And as I throw this elbow, I'm coming across right here. With the lead side, it's the same thing. I'm going to take a slight turn into this shoulder. So I'm going to lean my left shoulder back. My right hand comes up, and then off of this, I'm extending my arm into the elbow position, and I'm going to rotate from here. From the side, it looks like this. I'm pushing off with my back foot, rotating my hip and shoulder. My elbow comes up, and I want my elbow up before it makes impact. I don't want to be turning my elbow up as I'm hitting, because there's going to be a tendency to hit with the top right here. I want to hit with the blade, remember? So from here, I push off with my toe, rotate my hip and shoulder, bring my elbow up, and before I complete the biggest part of the rotation, my elbow should already be locked into position, and then I cut through. The second type of elbow is the up elbow, and the way this one works is kind of like an uppercut here, but I'm not dropping my hand down very low at all. From my guard right here, same movement mechanically with my body. I push off my back foot, rotate my hip and shoulder. I bring my elbow to the up position right here, and then it's a stabbing motion straight in. Here, I'm not coming up like this. I bring my elbow to the up position, line it up with my opponent's eye socket, nose, wherever, and then I jab straight in. Notice how I'm pulling my lead shoulder back when I extend my elbow. From the side, it looks like this. Push off, rotate, get my elbow up into position, and then I pull my lead shoulder back out of the way, and I stab straight in. The third type of elbow is the downward elbow, or the downward cutting elbow. It's similar to the horizontal elbow, but instead of my arm being on a horizontal plane right here, and my body staying upright, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna bring my elbow up above my eye line. So get your elbow up above your eye, chin's down, hands up, and from here, I'm gonna push off my back foot and rotate, but instead of staying vertical, I'm going to come off on an angle right here. I bring my head off the line of fire. I slice down. With my other hand, some people will bring that across and cut down on an angle this way. Some people leave it up nice and tight right here. Either one, it's up to you. So from here, I'm gonna bring my elbow up, push off with my back foot, rotate my shoulder, and I lean off on the line of fire and slice down on an angle. Okay, with the lead side, same thing as when we did the horizontal elbow. I want to do a little shift towards my front side, bring my elbow up, cut down on an angle as I rotate my hip and shoulder, and I slip my head off the line of fire. So the next one, I've heard it called a couple of different names, but we just call it the downward spear. So from here, I'm bringing my arm up past my head. My lead shoulder comes forward and I push my back foot into the floor, rotate my hip and shoulder, and I drive straight in. And that should come not down on an angle this way. I shouldn't drop that elbow here. It should be driving out. So I bring it up. Let's look at it from the side. I bring it up to here and I bring it forward, and then it drives in. And the final one, it's the fancier one, and it's made famous in mixed martial arts by John Jones, who lands this like every single fight, but it's the spinning back elbow. So from right here, I'm in my basic stance. I'm gonna mess this up a little bit. I'm stepping across with my front foot. I'm dropping my head down off the line of fire. I'm gonna rotate all the way around until I can see my opponent here. And then off of that, my elbow comes up. So again, I step across with my front foot. I move my head off the line of fire. And then off of this, I rotate here, look all the way around. My elbow comes up and I fire it up on an angle there. So when you're practicing this on the bag or on the pads, there's two approaches to this. You can smash with elbows or you can slash with elbows. A slashing elbow would be to graze the surface of, say, my opponent's forehead here, cut through, and I'm trying to gash the guy open. The problem with doing that on the pads and on the bag is if you're repeatedly just grazing the surface, just digging into the surface with the very tip of your elbow, you're gonna start rubbing the skin off the tip of your elbow. And I learned that the hard way too. You cut yourself open, you bleed all over the place. It's kind of gross. So for just day-to-day training, it's a lot easier to train these in a smashing style. So what I mean is when I'm throwing horizontal elbows, for example, instead of cutting through and just slicing, I want to concentrate on smashing in. So let's do a quick review of the 5 different types of elbows we just discussed on our friend here, and then I'm going to show you a couple combinations. So the first type was the horizontal elbow. The second was the up elbow. The third was the downward cutting elbow. Then we had the spear. And then we have the spin. Okay, let's look at a couple of basic combinations. For those of you who have some boxing training, hooks and uppercuts go really nice together. The same's true for your basic elbows here. So I can throw that horizontal elbow here as like a hook punch, and then my up elbow as an uppercut. And you can do that on either side. Boom. You can throw the downward cutting elbows and the spear type elbows as well. You can also throw that downward cutting elbow with the spinning elbow as well. I don't recommend sparring with these unless you're being very light and playful. Your sparring partner knows what's happening, that you guys are going to be playing with elbows a little bit. But even then, you should be wearing massive elbow pads. They're super dangerous. It's very easy to cut your opponent with them. So if you do want to add these into your regime, into your practice routine, you're better off putting them on the pads, your focus mitts with your trainer, or putting them on the heavy bag. And never forget, your #1 training tool is your training partners. You got to take care of each other. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'm Michael Foley, and I'll see you on the mats.